Hey, what's happening, y'all? This is John Wilson with the Lion Judah, and today we want to talk about the Lamb's Book of Life, which we're trying to get back open, and we need donations and sponsorships. We got up. We'll throw your ad up on our next program. If you need sponsorship, want sponsorship, just want to help the Lamb's Book of Life out, because of course it's something everybody wants to get written in, because the Lamb's Book of Life is about World War III, and it's about who's doing what and who's going to show up to win. And within doing that, also there's also a mobile application part to it called the TMAC, or the Target Matrix Aggregator Console. Now, right now, I've been trying to get it out, but I've been having a lot of trouble with the police because I've been being targeted. I've been being targeted all my life. In fact, the initials TMAC is after the first person, well, I should say MAC, the first persons, and their initials and the first person they put on me, being Mikey Crutchfield from my high school and elementary school, who was targeting me and has been targeting me for the Sanhedrin. And that's kind of the inspiration before we even got into the whole idea of World War III, or the resurrection for that matter. And it was just kind of just me noticing the balance between the idea of the Matrix and what was written in the Bible, and just me wanting to see something different as gentrification was starting to take over my neighborhood in a very deconstructive way in Washington D.C. And of course Kane's there. So before we get into all that, I wanted to read from Mark 12:31, and which is what is the most important commandment. And which starts, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind and strength. The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." All right. So why is this important, especially right now? Because our country's closed, and when our country's closed, that means somebody's not loving us correctly. They're not abiding by this holy text. They're not abiding by the holy scripture. So as I tell you that I've been targeted, and I'm here in San Diego, the a hotbed of Sanhedrin activity, and I was arrested quite a while ago, and had all of my materials taken from me, completely and totally unconstitutional. But one of the things, in getting the speck out of somebody else's eye, was saying, "Hey, look, we need to get this Lamb's Book of Life going." I also have to turn around and say, I've been directly targeted, and I started this whole idea of the target matrix to target. There's it was so hard for me to point out a person and say, well, this is the who I'm kind of want to model this after. But of course, I had to stop with Mikey Crutchfield, because he's been has been a man of the devil since fifth grade. And when somebody comes up to you and tells you, "Hey, look, you're fixing to get beat up because you're with the other team," and I'm with the home team. We've only got one country. And for somebody to tell you that and feel comfortable telling you that, and you got to keep your eye on that person, and not just put it on him. He's working with people that were pretending to be my family, and when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, they're into child molestation. They're into child kidnapping, and they're into that. They're into molestation and rape, and it's a terrible reality, but they're doing it. That's just what's going on. So that's part of just understanding why the first woe needs to happen, why the resurrection needs to happen, is because we have a lot of people out there that are doing a lot of ugly things, and it's gotten so bad to I've been beaten by the police, literally in front of this guy a couple times, and when you put that into perspective on who your friends are and who your family is, and if you're of the only real faith, which is Christ. I mean, in the Church of the Seven Angels, you can't really be around these people. And if you love your neighbor as yourself, you know, and you see somebody who's doing homosexual activities, or telling Black Lives Matter and so forth and so on, then there can be no love. And then for segregation has to exist, and segregation has to be given room to breathe, because this is the only country that it exists in. So it's something that we really have to talk about in more detail, as I said, as we talk about World War III, because that's the tipping point for World War III, is that there are people who are willing to fight to molest children, and if they're willing to fight up, there has to be somebody willing to kill them. So every world war starts on the premise of ending child molestation and slavery. So we'll get into that into a sec. So the first woe all begins on the premise of seizing control from the Sanhedrin. And if you saw my last video, the Sanhedrin is a three-headed monster of Bowser, Dave Chappelle, and Mark Zuckerberg, of course. So they're all family, and they're all terrible, horrible people, and their end is near. So, and I'm here to make sure that it happens. And, I'm up every day for this. And what has to happen, as I said before, is, I have to get people to sponsor this idea of a new beginning, of it first getting these people out of the country who follow the Sanhedrin, getting them out. And then, continue the pressure to remind people, hey, this thing is all about child molestation with them. That's their strength. That's their one and only strength is child molestation and rape. And when you get to that's one of the realities is that has to cause a World War III, because that's what started World War I and World War II, and it will of course start World War III. So and once you look at it like that, we've got to get back to the scripture and talk about. So when we get into the conversation about judgment, especially from Matthew 7:1, in judging people and being judged for that matter, is that we look into our court system as I had not judged California correctly. I do before I came out here. I didn't realize that slavery was so intense, but it is intense, and I didn't really realize it till I got to the actual courthouse and looked up at the state seal of California, and there's a black man on the seal of California. Well, how do you know he's black? Well, he's got a Roman uniform on. Nothing could be more black than a Roman uniform with a shield with the devil horns on it. That's just telltale, and that's part of the reason we have to start pushing hard on the Lamb's Book of Life and getting people in doing a census just on what we're doing. And part of, like I said, the Target Matrix aggregator console is having a console where you can take your information and make a workable, make it work, make your information into usable information to get to facilitate freedom. So what happens when you have somebody in charge of law enforcement, crime and punishment, and the economy all at the same time? It's a monopoly, and it's a trust, and it has to be broken up. And there's no getting around that. And there's once you put that into perspective, and you look around and you see a communist like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris running the government, and which shouldn't be happening, especially Kamala Harris. It's just not something that you negotiate on. And when you get to that point, you have to understand that something's got to be done. Something's got to be done, and this whole process leads to a point where the first woe has to happen, and people have to be asked out of here because we have people that are literally doing slavery now, and we have a woman as president, and the women that are in leadership positions right now seem a little bit too happy to be helping promote slavery. So we've got to get rid of them by any means necessary. So before we get into that, I first want to show you all this graphic on world history and the world wars and how they all start. And all the world wars start off the premise of child molestation and slavery. And although we talk a lot in this country about slavery, we don't talk a lot about child molestation. And if you look at Gustav Prinzip, he was the kind of the catalyst for World War I, where he shot Franz Ferdinand and Archduke Franz Ferdinand. And being an archduke, that has a lot of connotations to rape and child molestation, and that because that's what the Sanhedrin's into. So that's what he's into. You don't follow the Sanhedrin unless you have a stomach for that type of activity, and that's just what it is. And these people, they don't deserve to go on, and they should not go on, especially here in this country. And what happens is our country, the U.S., threw in our lot behind Serbia in the First World War. We said, hey, we're going to back Serbia and in this World War and win. and that's just what happened. And so around about the Second World War, Germany gets up again, but this time Germany is fighting in the faith. Germany is fighting against child molestation. They're fighting against slavery because that's what's going on. The Ashkenazis are telling people they're Jews, which they're not. They're Ashkenaz. It's just what they are. And anybody claiming to be a Jew after Christ is lying. It's just what our holy text tells us. It tells us this many times. It's what the whole book is about. So what happens is our country is being controlled by communists at this time, FDR and Truman, and we wound up throwing our lot behind uh, the communists. The communists said, and instead of Germany, and it's kind of this flip flop thing that you don't see. So what happens is the Lion and the Lamb, who are the spiritual leaders of the Protestants of Christianity, they lose that war. Even though Hitler gave a good fight, he killed a lot of bad people, and so not to discount that, but when we look at the people who won, which is the Polish side, because it all started with Hitler attacking Poland, and the Poland is the polity, the police. They're the polites, and the polites are those people who have a polite on Jesus. And it was a bold move for them to move between Russia and Hitler, and it didn't work out well for them nonetheless. But they held on to what they had and defeated Germany and Russia through the help of the U.S. because we switched sides. We switched sides to communism, so which is not a good look. And nonetheless, these things always wind up coming back on you because we look now and our country's closed by communism, by the same people, the Sanhedrin, and then all communists follow the Sanhedrin. It's just that's just what it is, either knowingly or unknowingly. So, with that said, the Third World War starts under the same premise, with the Lion and the Lamb fighting against the Sanhedrin, and that's the way this thing works, and it's the way it's been working, and the way it is working. So, what we've got to do now is get people in the Lamb's Book of Life, because that's the only way we're going to be able to gather the army under the seven thunders, and that's a big part of Christianity. That's a big part of Christ, and a lot of people, fake Christians, will tell you, well, this whole thing started on Jesus, and it's all about Jesus, and Jesus is the only one God. No, that's not true. Jesus is one of 14 gods. There are 14 angels, I should say, and seven gods, seven kings. So Jesus is just one of many. And when people get you too wrapped up into the just Jesus being the whole body, they're not speaking truth. They don't know what they're talking about, and that's one of the reasons why we need to get the Lamb's Book of Life going, so people can. I can elaborate on these things because I like talking about the seven thunders just as much as I like talking about the seven kings and the whole story for that matter, and it's deeply personal, and it's something, like I said, I like to share, but I haven't been able to because of the constant targeting of people on me. And as I said, I named this thing after a childhood friend or an associate, I should say, of mine who was targeting me and targeting me up until I was in jail. And I called him up and. Like I said, I grew up with family members who tell me, "Hey, look, we're targeting you. We want to make sure that we get the best out of you, and we want to do evil things to you." And when you look and you factor in that these people are saying it, and you see other people in neighborhoods doing this, telling you, "Hey, look, child molestation is okay," and there are all of these things about rape that we like, and it's just one of them things where you have to stop and say, enough is enough. We need to get a book of life and start taking them if it needs to be. So, like I said, it's one of those things. Look, I'm hoping to get some sponsorship behind because there's some people back back in DC that are just head over heels about slavery, and they need to be brought into submission because that's the one thing that was we said, hey, look, we're going to write this constitution so that no slavery will happen, but everybody can feel like they've got ownership in this thing because there are two races contained in the constitution. There's the people, and then there's citizens, and the citizens are communists, And communists should not have control or have say in the tax structure or who comes and goes in this country. They should have some say, or we're to that point where, should they have any say, because our country is closed right now. So when we start looking around at the Protestants and who are the racial minorities in government, the number is down to handfuls. And when we look at Congress, there might be 50 Protestants, 50 racial minorities in in our Congress body, but they'll tell you different because the black race is built on a lie. They're built on sand. They're built on the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is the leaders of the black race. So, like I said, the whole premise of their being is to lie and to push drugs and to molest children and to rape. And I want to keep reiterating that point until we get the support and the sponsorship that we need, because I've been put in situation after situation where I've been lumped in with child molesters and murderers people who just want to rape. And when you're in these situations, you try and be righteous, but there's only so far you can go. And right now, I've like I said, they've taken everything from me, and unconstitutionally. And they have the police on their side. And as I look back to these episodes I'm telling you when I was a youngster, that these people who are involved in this are working with the police, and they're looking to gain relationships with the police so they can continue child molesting and raping children. And that's the biggest, you know, crux between what's the difference between people and citizens, white race and the black race. And it's just simply that the black race likes to rape and lie, and that's something we have to be honest about if we're going to get this country back open and facilitate the first woe, which is just coming together and saying, hey, look, you citizens got to go. Y'all don't play by the rules, and you haven't been playing by the rules, and you've been stealing. And when you get to that point and you look at all the kleptocracy we're going through, how far can it go? So with that said, like I said, I've got a post up there on the last page with my phone number, email, and if you want to throw a donation so I can go get a hot dog or something from 7-Eleven or something good to eat, that'd be great. And we're going to need all the help we can get, because this is a part of the process of destroying the preschool to prison pipeline. And me coming up from DC, I literally see people every day that go out and teach kids that, hey, George Washington was a white man. And when you're teaching kids that poison, you're setting them up for prison. You're setting them up for brainwashing. When you're teaching kids that, hey, that NASA needs funding and these people are going to outer space, it's one of those things. What's really going on? And it's one of those things where they have to be brought to check, and it's one of those realities that's going to cause world war, because it's been going on for too long. And part of the first woe was just aligning ourselves to say, hey, look, this stops in this country. And the second woe is, of course, World War, the beginning of the Armageddon, when this thing all kind of ends up for Kane and Dave Chappelle. And like I said, we're going to talk more about that. Just trying to drum up some support to get out of San Diego and get away from the Sanhedrin, get to friendlier territory, so we can turn around and take this territory back over. So, hey, look, thanks for listening. God bless you, and amen. Take care.